You've read the title, you know exactly what I'm going to do. But let me just clarify something before we start. This video is spoiler filled, like seriously spoiler filled. I mean, do you see how long this video is? So please, watch all 13 episodes of the show, which is available on YouTube for free if you use the playlist in the description below. It's been uploaded directly on YouTube for years, and it obviously got a copyright claim, so it's not pirated. All money goes to DIC, though it helps the original archivers grow their channel, which is good, because being an archiver is kind of a non-profit and takes time, and the creators of the show themselves don't seem to mind it. It'll only take just over 3 hours, and it is a pretty entertaining way to kill an afternoon. Anyways, it's ranking time! At number 13, we got the Moblins are Revolting. Now, this tier is called so the episodes aren't bad, but they aren't that good either. Instead, it was worth the watch, but it wasn't that epic or anything. In this episode, after the Moblins fail another attack on the Triforce and Link, the Moblins lose their confidence in Ganon's leadership as all their attacks on Hyrule fail. So, the Moblins try to take down Ganon, and manage to do that by using his own wand. So now Ganon is stuck in a bubble, and now all of Ganon's monsters rise up and attack Hyrule. That takes up half the episode. Then, we see Link and Zelda casually chattering in the castle, before getting interrupted by the monsters attacking right outside. Except, they don't have to do anything, because without Ganon's leadership, these monsters fail. Because guess what? They don't have a lot of wit. Link and Zelda win by doing nothing. So the duo are enjoying this, and they casually walk up to one of the monsters.
This is the stupidest attack Ganon ever cooked up!
But the monster reveals that they are doing this on their own, and that Ganon isn't in charge. So then Zelda and Link take this moment to steal the Triforce of Power from Ganon, because the Underworld is empty. However, Link realizes that if Zelda has both Triforces, he would have no job or purpose since Hyrule will be completely safe, so Link messes up Zelda's plan. Ganon rules again, and everything is back to normal, except Zelda's a bit angry with Link now. This episode would probably be a bit higher if it weren't for the fact that it was the last episode in the series. Yup, this is not just the season finale, but the series finale. Funny how the last episode is in last place. I know it's a kids' comedy cartoon in which there's no chronological order for the episodes, meaning all 13 of these episodes are just 13 adventures that Link had, but still, come on. I would have preferred an episode like A Missing Link to be the finale, because not only does it leave the show on good terms, but it's also a pretty good episode for the show to end on. I guess they were leaving us on a cliffhanger for season 2, but that never came. Thankfully, Captain and Game Master came in to save the day and show that Zelda and Link are essentially a mature couple in the future. However, looking at DIC's previous video game adaptations, they practically always had one season worth of adventures for every Nintendo video game adaptation they made. I'm pretty sure Captain N was the only Nintendo adaptation to have more than one season, because there were 3 entirely different Mario adaptations made by DIC across practically 3 years, each Mario show starting fresh. I don't think they were planning on making a Zelda Season 2, but even if they did, why is this the finale? Of course, don't make the final episode just a climax, because a timeless kids cartoon, which each episode is a standalone, cannot have any episode without exposition and rising action. But still, make the final episode good. Well, this is not the first show where the penultimate entry is better than the finale. There are plenty of media where the penultimate entry was better, but this is one of the rare occasions where the finale was the worst. This episode would have worked great as, I don't know, probably the 8th entry in the series. Actually, I like that idea. Let's move up episodes 8 to 12 up a notch, so it's episode 9 to 13, and have the Moblins are Revolting as episode 8. That would actually transition very well, because in the start of Underworld Connections, which is the episode right after the Moblins are Revolting in the scenario, Zelda's frustrated with Link. However, everything goes back to normal between the two by the end of the episode. What a wonderful transition! This episode was literally meant for that place in the series. We were just that close. Maybe someone accidentally sorted the transcripts in the wrong order and caused this episode to be in a bad place. Anyways, I think that is enough commentary for this entry. Time to go to entry number 12.
Time for a flying lesson!
That sinking feeling gets number 12 in this list, and the reason why is because there's not a lot of memorable stuff from this episode besides the castle sinking, which was no surprise since the title kinda gave it away, and Zelda and Link being a romantic couple, which was pretty funny because Zelda was willing to give Link a kiss twice, but it failed. One time, Zelda was literally offering it before Link said the word. What? Look at how much the couple has grown together. Maybe Link will finally get his kiss sometime soon. Oh yeah, he does get his kisses in Captain N, but that wasn't part of the Zelda show. Anyways, in this episode, Link and Zelda are out on a romantic picnic before spiders attack them. They defeat the spiders and they resume the picnic and the smooching procedure before a Cupid statue sinks. Then they go back, only to see the entire castle has sunk into Ganon's underworld base. Luckily, Zelda has a Triforce on her hand, but Sprite and Zelda's dad were in the castle, so then Link and Zelda have to go to the underworld to bring the castle up to the surface. So then Link accomplishes the mission and asks Zelda for a kiss, but as a troll, Zelda's dad pretends Link was addressing it to him and kisses him on the cheek.
Hey! That was not exactly what I had in mind.
And everyone laughs. This episode just wasn't that memorable. Yeah, it had its moments, but I don't think there's much to say about it. It didn't have the iconicness the other episodes had. Yup, iconicness is a word, and I know that because Google Docs isn't correcting me. Look, I know this sounds like crap to you, but it's simply my opinion, and I'm just not a big fan of this episode. Like I said, it is enjoyable, but the other Zelda episodes are more enjoyable because of their iconicness. Oh my gosh, I'm sounding like one of those drunk critics who is biased towards one movie and hates all others simply because of their nostalgia. Anyways, this episode would be last on the list if it weren't for the Moblins Revolting being the last episode. Yup, you heard me correctly. I think this is the worst episode in the entire show. Even worse than the episode where you don't even see Zelda until the halfway point. In fact, in case you haven't noticed in my Basically series or just never watched it, this is one of the least used episodes in the entire series. I only used it once, just once, in Basically Bollywood 4, and that was only out of pity because I realized I never used a single scene from this episode. Every other episode, besides I think Stinging a Stinger, has had a scene in the Basically series. Stinging a Stinger may not have had a lot of memorable scenes, but it was a pretty clever episode. I'm not going to give too many details on that episode right now because I need to finish this. Every Zelda episode is good, and I'm glad I watched this episode, just like I am glad I watched every other one. But among the 13, this is the worst in my opinion. If the Moblins or Revolting had a spot in the order I suggested earlier in the video, the Moblins would have been higher, and therefore this episode would be last. Like I said, this episode is not bad, and some of these episodes are interchangeable. It's just not as good. Who knows? In the future, this episode might be higher in the list. But for now, it's in 12.
Link, speak to me! Link!
Oh, dying. Kiss me.
Oh!
On number 12, we have Sing for the Unicorn. In this episode, Link is caught looking at Zelda through her bedroom window by Zelda's dad. It turns out that Link was about to swing down her window to try to steal a kiss. No, seriously, Link calmly admitted that he was going to do that action. He really has a Triforce of Courage somewhere in his pockets. Let's hope Ganon doesn't find out. In fact, it might have been legitimately a strategy by Link and Zelda to make it so that way Ganon never realized there was a third Triforce required to rule Hyrule. Anyways, instead of Link getting in trouble, Zelda's father gives Link some advice about how to attract women. He advises to bring flowers, since from his experience, women love flowers. So Link does that, and wouldn't you know, it works. So Link is about to get a kiss, before Ganon kidnaps Zelda's father using a unicorn. So then Link and Zelda go to rescue him, and while doing that, they encounter a woman named Sing, who was the original owner of the unicorn before Ganon came in. So then they save Zelda's father, unite Sing with her unicorn, and escape. Not a bad cartoon episode, but not an especially great episode too. I'm going to say this now, I truly appreciate how unique each episode of the Zelda show was. I know there was only 13 episodes, but still, with only 2 games worth of source material, they did a very good job. Not to mention, it's safe to assume that considering the amount of ideas they were able to produce in such a short amount of time, They could easily be coming up with 13 new original ideas every year, especially considering this was a strong franchise with strong entries coming out basically every other year. Unfortunately, the show was only a one-season arc, so yeah, we only had 13 episodes. So even though Sing for Unicorn was an original unique concept, every episode was an original unique concept. It isn't just the concept that makes an episode good, it's the actual episode itself. Yeah, the beginning was pretty funny, and the rest of the episode was pretty good, but it just wasn't that memorable. This episode has basically the same structure as the Sinking Feeling, where the beginning was pretty funny and the rest may have been original, but just not that entertaining. A lot of people seem to love this episode, and I could understand why, but I personally didn't really enjoy it. I just believe there are way better episodes in this show. Like I said, maybe with age, this episode will get better for me. But for now, sorry. It's stuck in the bottom 3. Yeah, it's shocking that I only talked about this episode for 3 minutes compared to my bigger responses towards episodes like Kiss and Tell and the number 1 episode on this list. But you know what? I think I already stretched some segments a bit too much, even though I can do a better job in condensing the script. But you know what? Deal with my wordiness and stretchingness. I learned the stretching trick from cable, and you know what? I love cable television. I admit I'm not the best at that right now. I'm going to get better. I'm not stretching this video for watch time if you're wondering. No, shorter videos are better. No, I'm doing this to outdo my first video script. Yep, I just want to beat my first video's line. Because it's weird how my first video is my longest video and it's kind of cringy. So I wanted to fix that. Alright, let's go to number 10. And next tier, the classic tier.
The Triforce of Wisdom! What?
At number 10 and first classic on this list, we got Stinging a Stinger. Honestly, I'd say that every episode on this tier is interchangeable, because each of them had one incredible sequence of events that put them this high. Now, I will talk about the sequence of events in the other episodes when the time to rank them has come, because I know that a lot of people won't be watching the whole video and will probably be skipping around, assuming anyone's actually watching this video. My channel's kinda dead. Anyways, let me give a summary of this episode. In this episode, a guy named Sleazenose is getting beaten up by a bunch of goons, and Link comes in to save him. Link beats the crap out of the goons, and then Sleazenose offers him a deal. He has a sword that will make its wielder attractive, and all Link has to do is swap his old sword for that one. Link then asks whether it's a good sword to attract princesses, and the guy says,
especially princesses.
So then Link trades in his trusty sword for that one, and then he hears Zelda screaming for help. Link then goes to save her, and when he leaves, it is revealed that the goons beating him up was all just an act to get Link to do the trade. Anyways, we see Link trying to save Zelda, and he fails miserably because his sword is extremely poor quality. Poorer quality than these nuts. Ganon then arrives at the scene and captures them and puts them in his underground base. Sleazenose then shows up in the underworld, offering Link's sword for 1,000. Ganon gets outraged by the deal and hangs him up with Zelda and Link. Then he throws all 3 of them in a dungeon for a monster to eat or kill them or bone them or whatever. They escape, and this is where the incredible sequence comes into play. The Triforce of Wisdom said that magic means wasn't going to suffice, and it makes sense considering how Ganon has Link's sword. Instead, they have to use natural means. So then Link, Zelda, and Sleazenose then make a trap where Ganon will be forced to retreat and Link can easily swing in to steal the sword. The trap is pretty simple and involves a lot of bees. So then they finish setting up and Ganon comes in. So then the first step in the plan was that Sleazenose offers to redeem himself in Ganon's eyes by giving him the box containing the Triforce of Wisdom. Ganon, incredibly happy, opens it right in the moment. It turns out it was a beehive. So then Ganon and his men get attacked by the bees, Link swoops in and gets his sword back, Zelda throws another set of bees, and so on, and Ganon is defeated and is forced to retreat. The sequence is not over yet. So then they go back to the castle, only to find that the Triforce of Wisdom was gone. Link panics, but Zelda is pretty calm. Zelda then reveals the real Triforce was hidden beneath a bunch of clothes, and that she knew she couldn't trust Sleazenose. It turns out he was carrying a bunch of stinging ants, and he gets stung by all of them.
And that, Link, is how you sting a stinger.
Alright, I know that was a pretty long summary, but that was basically the entire review. As good as the last 5 minutes were, everything before that was okay. It wasn't that extraordinary, it was just okay, in my opinion. I enjoyed the entire episode, I enjoyed every Zelda episode. It's just that there are better episodes than this one. Now, in terms of concepts, this is easily one of the better episodes. Link loses his sword and has to fight Ganon without one. We got cool concepts like using rope against Goma and using bees against Ganon. However, as unique as the concepts are, this show is a very solid 13 episodes, and therefore there are episodes even better than this one, because the moments and character development are nowhere near as good as the other episodes. On to the next one.
Yeah, I got a reason, and here it is. Back off, Ganon. Zelda, come on. We're getting out of here.
No.
That meme was from a collab Neve and I did on his channel, Neve's Musical Journey, by the way. It's called Jingle Memes, not to be confused with the one on my channel, which was me just reusing the okay, I'm going to stop. In number 9, we got a Hitch in the works. I've often seen this episode get last in rankings, and I could see why. It reuses the whole chores concept already used in Cold Spells, and not a lot happens until the climax. This episode, like Cold Spells, was Link simply trying to get out of chores. However, as you can clearly see by where I put this in the ranking, I don't think it's the worst episode. I don't think it was entirely bad. Remember, I'm calling this a classic. There were 3 other episodes that didn't get this respect. So why is this episode so high in the ranking? First, let me give a summary. We start off with Zelda assigning Link chores, just like in Cold Spells. Link doesn't like the chores, something that also happens in Cold Spells. This time, however, Link doesn't encounter Sprite, but instead encounters an uncontrollable robot and the handyman of the castle. It turns out that the handyman, Doof, was trying to make a robot that could clean everything on its own. A robot that could do stuff on its own? Sounds a bit sus. Anyways, Link is immediately intrigued because the more the robot does chores, the less he has to do chores, which is super realistic because the only people who like AI are lazy people. But then the robot gets out of control and runs wildly, not giving a goddamn shit about humanity and its creations, kinda like what's going to happen in the future regarding artificial intelligence, and breaks a lot of stuff. In the middle of that, Moblins invade. Eventually, everything becomes a mess and Link gets knocked unconscious. When Link wakes up, he sees an angry Zelda in front of him. Link tries to explain that Moblins attacked, but Zelda doesn't believe him and just thinks he was slacking off. So Link tells Doof to make some robot Moblins for him to defeat right in front of Zelda in order to get out of chores. Zelda overhears the conversation though. Now, the legendary sequence begins. So, Link is casually cleaning when the Moblins attack. Both Link and Zelda don't take it seriously at first. When the Moblins start carrying away Zelda, Zelda thought this was just part of Link's plan to impress her, so she acts sarcastically about it. Link was just like,
Hey guys, you're going a little too far.
Then Zelda starts to get carried away to Ganon's base, and now they both know it's real. So then Link has to fight his way to save Zelda. So now Ganon has Zelda, and Ganon, inspired off of Bowser, decided to force Zelda to marry him. And it was a real marriage, because Ganon uses magic to make Zelda say it. See how traditional Ganon is? If he wanted, he could have just used the magic to directly steal the Triforce, but feeling inspired, he decided to make Zelda marry him first, so that way he can legally steal the Triforce, because once 2 people are married, what's each of their own property is now both their property, or something like that. I don't know how it works in Hyrule. Anyways, Link luckily blasts his way through and stops the marriage, which feels a lot like a good old traditional Mario game, except that Princess Peach has never been forced to marry Bowser until Super Paper Mario or something like that? I honestly have no clue because from what I remember, Bowser's always been just kidnapping Princess Peach and never got the wedding started by the time Mario comes in. I'm pretty sure Super Paper Mario was the first one where the wedding actually happens, but I honestly have no idea. Anyways, so Link saves Zelda, But the sequence is not over yet, because then when they leave, Doof jump scares Zelda with one of his fake Moblins, because right now, Zelda has no idea what's fake and what's not. And that marks the end of the episode. This is bloody brilliant. I'm doing very well with the word count of this video. Finally, I'll be able to beat the length of how Pokemon the original series could have been improved. Finally, I shall be able to make a more extensive video essay than my first video essay. Finally! Anyways, let's talk about why this episode is this high. Well, the action is pretty good, and probably even better than Cold Spells. While the beginning and middle may have been at the same level of Cold Spells, the climax is definitely way higher. Like Ganon forcing Zelda to marry him in typical Nintendo fashion before it was typical? Now that's what I like to call epic. Fun fact, one of my personal favorite Zelda memes to create was a collaboration called Jingle Memes. I mean, I just rickrolled you with that in the opening segment of this entry, and all of that comes from this episode. So yeah, I guess I am biased towards the episode because this was a fun episode to make a YouTube video out of. But still, this episode is pretty engaging and fun. The only reason why this isn't higher is, like I said, it had a lot of weak spots during the first half. I don't have anything else to say about this episode. This episode is even weaker considering the fact that it's been only 8 episodes since Cold Spells and Link does chores again. Well, even though the overall concept of the episode is weak, the climax was slick and it has plenty of good moments. So yeah, let's move on to the next entry on this list.
My hero! Link!
Jealous, Zelda?
In number 8, we got Kiss and Tell. I've seen this episode criticized for how annoying Link is throughout this, and that is a completely valid point. However, let me do a summary first. In this episode, Zelda and Link are supposed to be out on a picnic together, but Link is late, and a damsel is in distress, so Zelda deals with the threat herself. I already talked about how in the other episodes before this have a very good sequence towards the end, but in this episode, the sequence is the beginning. It starts off with a dragon harassing a woman. So then Zelda helps out and is actually doing a very good job. This is probably some of the best Zelda in the show. Now, the woman didn't like Zelda's help and was complaining about how she wanted a handsome hero to save her. So then Zelda, feeling inspired off of Link, decides to give the woman a piece of her catchphrase.
Well, hey! Pardon me!
Anyways, Link soon comes to the scene, feeling proud, and defeats the dragon. So then the woman offers him a
Kiss to show my gratitude.
So Link is like,
Pay attention, princess. You could learn something.
and then Zelda gives him a raspberry, and Link kisses the woman. Link has finally achieved smooching time. Yay! It turns out the kiss turns him into a frogman, and the woman was a monster. Zelda defeats the monster on her own. Another heroic Zelda moment right here. So then Link realizes he's a frog, and he's very sad. Zelda comforts him. Yay, another good Zelda moment. However, Ganon then takes this moment to kidnap Zelda, because Link can't really fight that well anymore. Well, the sequence is over now, so then Link has no choice but to go back to Hyrule and do something about his curse. Link is still ashamed about his curse, which is why he's very hesitant in showing Sprite his face. He does it anyway, and asks the Triforce about how to be a human again. The Triforce tells him to find the Wall Witch, so then Link finds the longest wall in Hyrule and the witch. The witch was, of course, a Wall Witch, so Sprite was like,
What is this? Ugly People Day?
The witch shooed the sprite away and gave Link his prescription, a princess's kiss. So until Zelda gives him a kiss, he won't be cured. So then Link has no option but to rescue Zelda in its frog form and then tell her that he needs to be kissed by her in order to be cured. Before Zelda could do that, however, Ganon comes in and attacks. So Link then gets knocked unconscious. So Sprite, out of sadness, gives Link a little peck on the cheek. Oh look, Link got cured and now is a human. Link defeats Ganon and saves Zelda and everything is back to normal. Remember, Sprite is the princess of the fairies, so her kiss worked. So then as a celebration for victory, Zelda was like,
You still want a kiss?
and to that Link was like,
You bet! Oh boy!
However, something interrupts him. It wasn't Sprite if you're wondering. No. It was because Link, still used to being a frog, grabbed a fly he saw and ate it right before kissing Zelda. Zelda, being disgusted, walks away. Thus marks the end of the episode and the saddest episode of Zelda. Well, that is a good point, but I think the saddest episode has to go to Stinging a Stinger. Because Zelda literally says,
Kiss me!
and Link made a bee pun and ruined it. Like, come on, Link. You had such a good opportunity to pollinate Zelda's flower, and you ruined it. Oh crap, I just ruined my chances for this video to actually gain views. Anyways, it's time for the criticism. So first, let's talk about how obvious the plan was. I mean, Link turning into a frog was a surprise, but the woman and dragon kept talking about the plan so often that it spoiled the fact that it was all a play. Like, the foreshadowing should have been limited to the dragon saying,
"Oh well, did my part."
and the woman giving her a wicked smile. And then Ganon already congratulates them for doing their part. Like, that is literally all they needed. Not to mention, there was so much potential for Link using his frog powers to do some good. But pretty much all they showed him doing was sticking to the cave ceiling a bit. Like, they could have made an episode as clever as Stinging a Stinger. But nope, they didn't. If they limited the foreshadowing a bit and focused more on Link using his frog powers, this episode would have been way higher. Like, they have a good concept. It's creative and funny for a kid's cartoon. Because kids obviously would find the slapstick funny. Oh look, Link turned into a frog after kissing that girl. Yuck! Ha 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 ha! I apologize for the acting I just did. Look, it's a 1-hour program, so there needs to be variety. Plus, when the Antidium does it, it sounds good.
Ah, did it work?
Anyways, let's continue our review of this episode. I really liked the ending. It was pretty funny, and the beginning was pretty good too, though it had a lot of missed potential. The middle had a lot of missed potential too, because Link's a frog and so many jokes could have came out of that. There also could have been a lot of cool moments too in this episode. But nope, that didn't happen, which keeps this episode in the classic tier, making it still good, but not that extraordinary and worthy enough to join the second tier on this list, the epic tier.
Looking good, princess. Especially from this angle.
In number 7, we got The Ringer. If your first episode is the middle episode, that's a good sign for a variety of reasons. You set the bar for what the following episodes would be like. Some will be a bit weaker, some will be a bit better, but roughly the same quality. You built a solid base for the following episodes to expand on and improve. And we know that because we have 6 really good episodes succeeding this. You also gave a good impression, and we know that because this episode is higher than 6 others and is in the epic tier. It's good that the pilot is the middle episode. But what is my actual review of the episode? First, let me give a summary. We start off with Link complaining about his life in Hyrule and wanting more adventure. It's actually a classic beginning in your typical hero's journey. Link opens his window and sees Zelda, and remembers why he was here. Zelda is in her pajamas, and since Link is looking from a higher place, he can see certain parts through her dress's opening. And he starts whistling and talking about how good she looked from his angle. So then Zelda, shocked about how open he was about his feelings, went back inside to wear a robe. So Link continues to enjoy the view. When some Moblins attack him, we get this 2-minute action scene where Link defeats all the Moblins in his pajamas while throwing jokes when he can. It's actually a very good opening where Link uses his surroundings to defeat the Moblins because they got the first attack and he wasn't prepared for this. So he defeats the Moblins and Zelda knocks on the door. He thought he was getting offered a kiss, but in reality he was getting offered a slap for whistling at her earlier while looking at her things. Anyways, Zelda walked into his room and was complaining about how messy his room was. And to that, Link said,
Excuse me, princess.
and defended himself, while over-exaggerating about how the Moblins attacked him and tried to steal the Triforce.
There were Moblins in here? When?
About 10 seconds ago. About, 15 of them.
Zelda apologizes, but proceeds to put him in the guard position for the rest of the day, and Link is frustrated that he has to stay in the room all day long. So then Zelda is seeing to this magician's contest, where we got to see spells like the growing spell, but Ganon shows up in disguise, pretending to be a magician, and since he was very close to Zelda, physically, not intimately, even though he did try to marry her at one point, he uses magic to turn a lizard into a dragon to attack her. Link swoops in to rescue her. However, after defeating the dragon and turning it back into a lizard, Zelda comes up to him, upset. Why? Because he is
supposed to be guarding the Triforce.
And wouldn't you know, the dragon was just a distraction. Ganon has been stealing the Triforce in the meantime and escaped. How will they catch him now? Remember the growing spell I mentioned earlier? Well, Zelda asked that magician to grow a vine into a very large one, making it so that they can pull back the vine while on top of it, causing the vine to fling them all the way to where Ganon is heading. So Link and Zelda end up there, and they fight Ganon and his reinforcements until they blow up his base yet again and get the Triforce back. Now, since they got the Triforce back, Link convinces Zelda to give him a kiss, and they're about to do it before Sprite interrupts. The camera then goes to the evil jar where Ganon is angry at Link and Zelda. This episode is perfect as a pilot episode and sets up so much. In fact, the only reason why this episode is this low is because we got another episode even more important than this right after, and we got 5 masterpiece episodes too. Anyways, let me start explaining. The first thing it sets up are the characters. We get introduced to Link's heroism, catchphrase, and motivation to get a kiss from Zelda. We get introduced to Zelda's responsibility, stubbornness, and temper. We get introduced to Ganon's evil yet tactful personality. We get introduced to how much action this show has and how clever it can be. The little details you thought were completely minor are fully used when the climax comes. The action sequences are plentiful and the humor is immature enough for the kids to understand. All of this is set up in this episode. This episode is a great episode to start off watching the show. It doesn't set your expectations too high, but it doesn't set your expectations too low. It's right in the middle. Anyways, let's go talk about an episode even more important than this.
Is that what they call a royal flush?
At number 6, we got cold spells, which might surprise many people. Yes, the memes are part of the reason, but the reason why it's this high is because of its importance. This is the only episode where Link doesn't say "excuse me, princess," and doesn't say the word kiss. This is a very important episode in proving how much variety the show's humor has. Before I get into much more detail, let me give a summary. We start off with Link flirting with Zelda before Zelda gives him a bunch of chores. Link, acting childish because children watch the show and therefore it makes more sense they have a character that they can relate to, pretends to be sick to get away with the chores. He fools Sprite, but before continuing his act, we get this legendary scene.
Phew.
Zelda!
Link!
Oh boy, smooching time! Oof!
So Zelda escapes his smooch and is like,
Aren't you supposed to be cleaning the kitchen?
and then Link pretends to be sick with Sprite supporting him. Of course, Zelda doesn't get fooled, but she decides to let Link be. Anyways, so Sprite then goes to look for an orange and buys one, before Ganon puts a spell to make it so that way whatever magic she does is like tenfold more powerful. Anyways, so Sprite then knocks on Link's door, and Link was like playing around, and he realized that Sprite was here, and he better go back to acting sick. Anyways, so all that stuff happens, so then Zelda assigns Sprite some chores. So Sprite is cleaning, and she makes her magic start cleaning for her, but since it's way more powerful, it starts attacking her. It starts to flood, and Link gets flushed with Zelda throughout the castle, causing Link to be like,
Is that what they call a royal flush?
So Link and Zelda go to save Sprite, but while they're doing that, Ganon steals the Triforce. So then they chase Ganon into the underworld, falling through this trap which causes them to scream a lot. So much, I was able to include this wonderful set of scenes in my Zelda Scream compilation. Anyways, so then they fall into the trap, and are about to be eaten and all that stuff, and Ganon's about to rule Hyrule, but then Sprite comes in, and remember, Ganon made it so that whatever she does is way more powerful, so then Sprite was able to harness all her power to save Zelda and Link, and get the Triforce back. Now, as clever and iconic as that episode was, that's not the main reason why this episode is this high. No, it's because, like I said, the importance of the episode. It expands the humor of the show. We all know how in every drama, one character needs to lie. That obviously establishes drama and a conflict, and makes the viewers interested in what will happen if the lie is exposed. However, in every comedy, especially the kids' shows, lying can be used to make a funny joke. In Cold Spells, Link lies that he's sick to get away from chores. Not only is this very relatable for a kid, his acting is pretty funny too. When no one's watching, he's very active and having fun. However, as soon as someone gets close, he immediately pretends to be sick. That will get a few laughs from the kids, which is very important for a kid's cartoon. Then we get the legendary line,
Oh boy, smooching time!
which is actually not at all inappropriate for a kids show. Just because the protagonist wants to get a kiss doesn't mean it is inappropriate. Notice how Link never actually touched Zelda in this scene? Yeah, he tried to catch her, but failed. In fact, it seems more like he was just trying to get a simple kiss instead of a full-on bed scene. In fact, every time Link tried to kiss Zelda, he never actually was trying to hold her tight and force submission. No, the animators and writers had a very good eye for detail. They knew that mentions of a kiss is completely fine, but actually holding them tightly while trying to do it is not exactly something that should be in a kids show. Attempting to get a kiss is completely appropriate for a kids show. Attempting to hold them and force submission while trying to get a kiss is not appropriate. But that never happens in the show. Now, enough of talking about how this is age appropriate. Now let us talk about the other aspects. So this episode never uses "excuse me, princess," besides in the intro, and it never uses the word kiss, instead replacing it with an even more funnier line. This is genius humor. It feels like a Zelda episode, it feels like an 80s cartoon, and it's just entertaining.
Excuse me, princess!
It's a very funny line, but the show proved that if it wants, it doesn't need it. But they feel it is entertaining, so they use it. They don't need a line, but they want it, because if you actually did watch the show as a kid, you'd love it. Alright, I admit, I did copy this section off of my Why the Zelda Show is Great script. I'm not being lazy, it's just that section matches exactly what I want here. So no, I'm no Sniper Wolf. I'm just a writer using his own scripts to write! Which actually sounds a lot like the writing of the latter seasons of The Simpsons, which is kinda lazy, which I suppose makes me lazy. Let's move on to the next episode on the list.
Kiss? Excuse me, princess!
At number 5 in the first of the top 5, we got Underworld Connections. This episode is dedicated to Link and Zelda exploring the underworld, and that is actually a very cool concept. But it's not just the concept that makes the episode good. Before I explain, let me do a summary first. Actually, let me just say this now. This episode has the most
Excuse me, princess!
by Link, and it makes the episode really funny. Especially when Zelda was like,
Oh, just get moving.
oh yeah, Zelda gets really upset with Link throughout the episode. So yeah, it is a really funny episode. But first, the summary. So the episode starts off with Link making his way towards Zelda's room while keeping his eyes closed. Obviously, he's not sleepwalking, or else he wouldn't have gotten that insane aim and that insane precision while walking across the rope. But Zelda hears Link is doing it, so then Zelda, upset that Link is trying to sneak into her room, throws her glass at him and almost causes him to fall to his demise. So then Link was trying to get away with the excuse that he was sleepwalking. But Zelda knows the truth and doesn't take it. But Link then does some insane flirting techniques that convince her to kiss him. Of course, as usual, Zelda didn't finish the kiss and somebody interrupted. In this case, it's some bats who are here to steal the Triforce. But a twist is that they aren't big enough to carry the Triforce. So how would they be able to do it? Well, they have a bomb in their hand. So their plan is to explode the Triforce, and then each of the three carry their own piece. Luckily, Link stops them from taking all three, but two have still been taken. However, since the three pieces are linked, Zelda then tells Link to shoot at their piece, so that way, it affects both the bats holding the other two pieces. So now since the Triforces have been dropped, Zelda touches both sides of the Triforce to know where both pieces are. One is somewhere wet. One is somewhere hot. So then Link and Zelda venture off into the depths of the underworld in order to find both pieces. Throughout the journey, Zelda gets frustrated with Link. Link keeps asking for an excuse. No, I don't apologize for that. And they eventually find both pieces of the Triforce before Ganon surprised attacks them because he has been waiting for them to collect all 3 pieces of the Triforce and repair it because this is his territory and they are uniting the pieces in his lair. Ganon attacks them in what is actually a very good action set, though it was quite brief, which ends with Link and shield surfing him and Zelda out of the base through a lava eruption. Remember, this show brought shield surfing, and it is clear the creators behind Breath of the Wild watched the show. And I'm glad they did because that is such a cool feature of the game, and it's about time someone uses one of the many cool things about the show in the games. It's an incredibly funny episode and adds a lot of layers to the underworld. Haha, get it? Because Earth is made out of layers. And alright, fine, I'll stop the puns. Anyways, we are only at number 5, and we got such a good episode. It always makes me upset when people just cast away this show, because this show has such good episodes of television and is absolutely worth the time. Just give the show a try, and remember, this is the 1980s we're talking about, and there were only 2 games worth of source material to derive from. So yeah, please go easy on the show creators. They did an insanely good job for what they were given. Anyways, let's go to number 4 on this list right before we enter the magnum opus tier.
Afraid there's only one way to tell you two apart. A kissing contest!
At number 4, in the last of the epic tier, we got the Doppelganger, which is probably the funniest episode of the show. We start off with a Moblin attacking Link, who is currently humming the Mario theme, which results in the Moblin's defeat and Link getting this episode's magic item. Then, we have Ganon dropping a mirror into Zelda's room, which Zelda never suspects to be evil. At night, however, an evil version of Zelda appears in the mirror and comes out to steal the Triforce. She and the rest of Ganon's army are almost successful until Link swoops in to save the day. He zaps all the Moblins on sight and accidentally destroys the mirror, which is good because if he didn't, then evil Zelda would have easily been able to walk through with the Triforce. Anyways, so in order for evil Zelda to convince Link that she's the real Zelda and get away with the Triforce, she gives Link a smooch. What I like about these kisses is that they're more funny instead of seductive. Yeah, evil Zelda's fooling Link through physical contact and pleasure, but they're designed to make the kids laugh, not for sexual plot, like in Game of Thrones and the Emoji Movie. So after evil Zelda kisses Link, Link is like,
Woo-wee!
and Zelda convinces Link to go to the Underworld with her to steal the Triforce of Power. Now, Link so far has no idea what is going on, but he notices some suspicious stuff about evil Zelda. For example, evil Zelda is refusing to use her magic to make the Triforce of Wisdom float like usual. However, the thing that seals the deal is when Link notices how he, his horse, and Zelda's horse have a shadow, but not evil Zelda herself. That's when Link realizes she's actually a fake Zelda, and not the real Zelda, and that the real Zelda is captured somewhere in the underworld. However, instead of immediately zapping evil Zelda away, Link decides to go with it, because if he waits long enough, evil Zelda would end up leading him to the real Zelda. So Link goes to acting mode. However, Link knows that after this, he won't be getting kisses for a while, so he savors his journey and takes any opportunity he can for a kiss. However, real Zelda has been escaping by herself during all this time, and at some point, when Link is kissing evil Zelda, real Zelda walks in, and we get this priceless expression from Link where he's trying to explain himself, but Zelda, being the dutiful princess she is just like,
Don't talk! Move! She's getting away!
Now, a sequence begins where the real Zelda and Link are chasing after evil Zelda, and we get legendary moments like this.
Don't you ever do that again without telling me!
Well, excuse me, princess!
After a while of chasing, the real Zelda gets close enough to evil Zelda to tackle her into the mud. But now since they all look the same, Link can't tell the difference between the two of them. Now, he could have just done a zap test on each of them and see who disappeared, because regular humans just get a slight burn when they get zapped, whereas Ganon's army gets teleported to the evil jar. However, Link knows that he isn't going to be getting any kisses for a while, so he decides to do a
Kissing contest!
one Zelda gives him a good kiss, and one Zelda gives him a slap. Guess who's the real Zelda? You guessed it, the one that gave him a slap. So now they zap away evil Zelda, do a quick fight with Ganon, and escape. However, this episode's not over yet, and Link takes this moment to do a satire joke.
You know, Princess, you might want to consider a black outfit. Might look pretty good.
Zelda's frustrated, and we get another,
Well, excuse me, Princess.
and the episode is over. Now that we finished summarizing, let's talk about why this episode is where it is. Now, I already talked up so much about how funny it is. It can't be denied that this is one of the funniest episodes, and this episode even helps the kids learn a new word, Doppelganger. But even though the humor and vocab is great, characterization and story isn't the strongest. Look, I know this show is not known for its character and story, but episodes above this entry have a story so good that they get their own tier and beat this episode. Even though the Doppelganger may not be in the top 3, it still is in the top 5, and it's still an epic episode.
What fun! Kiss me, Princess.
Sure, why not? I guess it won't spoil the day too much.
In number 3, we got Fairies in the Spring, simply because it's such a good episode with a good concept. Let me give a summary of this episode. In this episode, the kingdom's construction men are in the middle of making a water slide before these water monsters show up. Link and Zelda investigate this, and while they're doing this and fighting the water monsters, a water monster kidnaps Zelda's dad. So then Link and Zelda go after him and go through treacherous depths, only to find out it were the fairies who were creating the water monsters. The reason why they were doing it is because the water being used up to fill the water slide comes from their spring. They never actually kidnapped Zelda's dad, they were just bringing him to the King of the Fairies where they were negotiating. So they decide to stop taking water from the spring and everyone is happy, and they all enjoy the water slide. Link, seeing Zelda in her swimsuit, realizes this could be a really satisfying kiss if it gets carried through. However, right before their lips contact, Sprite decides to disturb them as usual, and everyone laughs. The end. Yes, that's the shortest summary you'll get from me in this video. Oh yeah, Sprite is the daughter of the King of the Fairies, which makes you wonder, why in the world is a princess's assistant? Actually, I'm just going to stop, because I try to continue this point, but then it's sort of like stretched the video. A lot. Anyways, I have a lot to talk about, so let's jump right into it. First off, in case you haven't noticed by my description, Ganon is not in this episode. This is the only episode where Ganon is not in it, which honestly kind of makes it refreshing. It also works especially well, considering how the missing Link comes right after, opening with probably the best attack Ganon has ever done. Alright, so that's one positive of this episode. Another one is the whole concept. The action sequences in this episode are incredible, with this whole underwater trek. The opening scene literally has water monsters summoning out of the water slide, attacking all the men working on it. There's even a sequence of events where we got Link and Zelda dealing with an eel. Link and Zelda even go deep underwater and escape a shark. This is the only underwater episode. It's very cool we got all these different one-off threats. And the whole concept of this episode is environmental, which is pretty cool. There's nothing for me to criticize in this episode. The humor is not as good as classics such as Cold Spells, The Doppelganger, The Underworld Connections, but this episode still has plenty of humor. Link fails his kisses several times. As usual, Link says his catchphrase, Zelda's a savage.
You called for a hero, Princess?
Yes, but I guess you'll have to do.
There is plenty of good humor. This episode shows many instances where Link and Zelda save each other, like this instance where each of them has been captured by water monsters and they can't zap their own. So they both zap each other's water monsters so that way they're both free. This episode shows so much cooperation, and that's another good lesson for the kids. The concept is especially good, the action is especially good, the whole episode is especially good. Like, what else could I ask for? However, even though this episode is one of the magnum opuses of this show, there are still 2 more entries I wish to discuss that are even better than this one.
Thanks, Sprite. Ah! Sprite, get out of here! I'm taking a bath!
I know. You look cute. Need your back scrubbed?
At number 2, we got the White Knight. There are a lot of things I wish to discuss, but before we do that, I want to do a summary. Probably my most detailed summary, because it's the moments that make this episode especially good. So of course, as I'm going through this episode, I can easily go through the good moments this episode has. We start off with Link roaming Hyrule with Zelda, and Link pointing out how rich Hyrule is with magic, and Zelda explains that's why Ganon wants it so much. Then, Ganon's army attacks. Link tries to fight them, but through a series of actions, he ends up tying a rope to an octopus, but the octopus is so strong that he keeps moving easily, and now Link is stuck holding the rope. Zelda isn't able to do anything, and it doesn't look like Link will be free anytime soon. But then a White Knight, both physically and metaphorically, and what I mean by physical, I mean his clothes, though he is white, but like that's not why he, oh my gosh, I'm stretching it again, comes to save the day. His name? Prince Facade, which is a pretty clever name and great foreshadowing. Like as a kid, it won't give away anything because it actually sounds like a real name. But once you're grown up, you're like, holy shit, this character's design is fucking clever! He defeats the monster from his horse and impresses Zelda. He also takes the gem the monster drops and doesn't let Link have it because he believes he earned it. Link offers a hand for a handshake, but his hand is dirty and Prince Facade ignores it. Again, very symbolic, as the arrogant prince refuses to put himself on the same level as the common man. Anyways, he takes Zelda on his horse, who is lovesick, so lovesick, I made this meme, and Link has to walk his way back to the castle. Ganon then takes advantage of this and comes up with a plan to kidnap Zelda. Anyways, so Zelda and Prince Facade are back at the castle and are flirting with each other. Zelda's dad is a bit confused because they already had an adventurer in the castle, Link. Zelda was like,
Well, there's Link, of course, but he's not in the prince's class. Prince Facade is wonderful.
which is both in money and in personality, or at least the personality he's showing. Again, this is ingenious writing. They managed to say so much stuff using such a few words. This is literal S-tier writing over here. Anyways, so they continue simping each other, and Zelda's dad asks,
Where is Link anyway?
and since Zelda is so love-struck, she isn't even paying attention. In the meanwhile, Link is taking a bath and wants to look like a prince to impress Zelda. Sprite comes in with the clothes Link wanted, and she starts to act creepy towards him. This is a symbolic representation of how Zelda feels when Link is creepy towards her, and it's safe to assume Link realizes that. Anyways, so Link strides into the room with his funky royal outfits, and it makes him look silly, not to mention, he can't even walk properly. In fact, he falls down, and everyone starts to laugh. You can see the anger in Link's eyes after he sees Zelda laughing at him. Link then disappears out of the room, and Zelda wonders where Link is, showing that she hasn't completely forgotten about Link. I want to take this moment to talk about how symbolic Link dressing up as a prince was, because it is showing off jealousy and trying to be someone you... Alright, fine. I'll stop talking about the symbolic meanings of everything in this episode. Anyways, so now Link is very angry at Zelda for laughing at him, and decides if she simps for Prince Facade so much, she can just make him protect the Triforce, and is so frustrated that he quits and rides off, leaving Hyrule. Anyways, so now Prince Facade and Zelda are about to kiss, before Ganon's army interrupts it, and one of the guys kidnaps Zelda. Prince Facade goes after her, until he starts to walk through mud, since Prince Facade is so scared of getting dirty, which was actually foreshadowed earlier when he avoided touching Link's dirty hands. Again, all these gestures and words are so vital and symbolic. Oh crap, I'm doing it again. So now Zelda realizes the kind of person Prince Facade is, and now she's very frustrated with him, and is about to be at Ganon's mercy. She screams, and loud enough for Link to hear her while he's leaving Hyrule. Link doesn't want to go, but his heroic nature tells him to. Link goes through the dirty mud and defeats the monster and saves Zelda. Zelda, angry at Prince Facade, leaves him. And now everything is fixed between the two of them. The end. Now let's talk about the episode. I love Link's characterization as a hero. I love how perfect Prince Facade seems until we notice the lengths he'd go to stay looking perfect. I love how Zelda was so love-struck that she forgot what really makes a person good. And I love how Sprite was used to show Link how Zelda feels when he's creepy towards her. And I love the symbolism! However, there are a couple of flaws with this episode. The humor's not that good, which makes sense because they were sacrificing humor for some very good characterization. However, one thing that I can't excuse is how obvious the plan was. Ganon basically recited his plan. Look, Prince Facade avoiding to touch Link's hand was good foreshadowing, making it aha when Prince Facade refused to save Zelda. But with Ganon literally saying it aloud, it makes it no longer an aha, but an Ganon's doing his plan and it's working, which isn't bad, and I know it's a kids show, but we all know kids would rewatch the episode anyways, because we all know kids rewatch the same thing over and over again depending on how obsessed they are with it, and they'd notice the slight foreshadowing with Prince Facade refusing to shake Link's hand, and that would help boost the rating, instead of the obviously Ganon reciting his plan. Wait, I think I'm stretching the sentence. To cut it short, foreshadowing missed a lot of potential, regardless if it is a kids show, because you don't need to keep the foreshadowing too obvious when chances are they're going to rewatch it over and over again. And yeah, I know it's cable, but I mean, reruns exist. Anyways, even though the foreshadowing had a lot of missed potential, it still doesn't stop this episode from being number 2. Well, even if the foreshadowing was improved, there is still an episode even better than this one.
Zelda in love with Link? How disgusting!
So...
At number 1, we got The Missing Link, which is probably no surprise for most people. This episode had a good humor, excellent action, a great concept, some very good characterization, it's super epic, and it's such an insanely good episode. Let's first give a summary before we dive into each of these. We immediately jump in with Ganon attacking Hyrule, and he manages to zap Link, and tells Zelda before leaving to give him the Triforce, which was currently in Zelda's hand and being used, or else Link shall stay dead forever. That is an epic beginning. But it turns out the blast wasn't powerful enough and only Link's body is in the evil jar, not his soul. The thing is that only Zelda can see Link, which is proven when Sprite tried to find Link but couldn't see him, and only Zelda was able to. I really like how they mentioned Sprite, but I'll talk about that later. Anyways, it turns out Link can't actually touch anything, so Zelda has to fight her way through by herself. We get some more humor in, and the journey begins. So when Zelda encounters her first enemies, no surprise, she isn't doing very well, since this is her first time fighting with a sword. So Link starts to do his very Link jokes that we all grew to love. Of course, Zelda's frustrated with Link, so we go through this funny and action-packed ride towards Zelda getting Link's body back.
It's especially funny because they make good use of the jokes that could come out of Link being a ghost, unlike a certain other episode.
Anyways, so we go to the climax. Ganon's men tell him about how Link is a ghost and Zelda can somehow see and communicate with him, and Ganon gets angry. Why? Well, it turns out whoever is able to see a ghost like Link has to be in love with him in order to see him. Since Link and Zelda both overheard, Link is like,
You love me, huh?
and has a smirking face on, and Zelda is like,
No, I mean, maybe just a little.
Link gets up and starts shouting,
Zelda loves me!
and his plan initiates, where Zelda has to distract Ganon and his monsters while Link goes in the evil jar to get his body back. Anyways, so Zelda eventually gets captured, but Link in the meanwhile stirs up the evil jar and was able to make it explode. Link and Zelda escape, and now the underworld is pretty broken, so now Link was able to sneak in a kiss. Well, was about to before he got interrupted by nature. Anyways, so now that we finished the summary, let's talk about it, starting off with the humor. The competition and interactions between both Link and Zelda was so funny in this episode, and this works especially well since it's just the two alone for almost the entire episode. The couple are isolated and are doing their couple jokes, and I know the Zelda show has been pretty controversial nowadays for its portrayal of Link and Zelda, but the same people don't realize is that its portrayal is not that different from Han Solo and Princess Leia, a very iconic relationship, especially at its time. Link and Han are heroic, but can be irritating to their lovers. They also really want a kiss. Princess Leia and Zelda are both princesses who are frustrated with their lovers and are pretty strong, though they have been a damsel in distress sometimes, but not that often. In fact, they both had rescued their fair share of people too. The relationship itself between the two couples are also pretty similar too. They both are humorous, memorable, and powerful. Remember, Star Wars was released very recently at the time and was considered some of the best movies ever. In fact, it still is considered some of the best movies ever, especially the originals. It is safe to assume that when they were creating Link and Zelda's relationship, they were inspired off of Han Solo and Princess Leia and decided to add in a bit of Steve Martin humor into it. Anyways, let's talk about the action. The opening was one of the best openings ever and was quite surprising. In fact, the title literally tells what's going to happen, but we don't realize what it actually means until we watch the episode. Link's body's missing, giving it the title The Missing Link. Ah, Link's link between his body and soul is also missing, adding on to the title. Ah! The action throughout the episode was also strong, especially towards the end where the evil jar itself was destroyed. Well, temporarily, of course, but still, that is a very unique climax for the show. Anyways, let's talk about the next part, the great concept. Ganon zaps Link's body into his evil jar, and now Link and Zelda have to get his body back, but Zelda has to be the hero since Link can't wield a sword. That is a very unique concept and is very cool, especially for a kid's cartoon. I already gave a summary, I don't need to give more details. Anyways, let's talk about the characterization. Link and Zelda's relationship gets deeper, and it's even confirmed that Zelda is in love with Link, just like Link is in love with Zelda. We already talked about their great interactions and how Zelda proves herself to be a hero in this episode. But what I haven't mentioned is how good it is that Sprite can't seize Link. Before, we knew that Sprite had a little crush on Link, but now we know it's just a little crush and not actual love, which helps Link and Zelda's relationship and also avoids complicated unnecessary love triangles that I don't want to see. Look, Prince Facade and Zelda's love triangle was just a one-off episode that managed to stir up some great plot and characterization. However, making Sprite actually love Link is going to get very complicated, and I personally don't want to see that for some complex reasons that I don't want to get too deep in this video. I just preferred when Sprite's crush on Link is just a little crush for comedy purposes, not actual love, because we all know Link will choose Zelda simply because she actually has height, and it can get very complicated and offensive to short people, and this is just not going to be a good idea. For simplicity purposes, I am glad it's just between Link and Zelda. Anyways, this was a very epic episode. It was very good, and the best Legend of Zelda episode that is completely worth watching. The entire show is worth watching and is very good. Just please give it a chance. Anyways guys, that's my ranking for The Legend of Zelda. The Moblins Are Revolting was a decent episode, but serves as a bad finale. That sinking feeling and Sing for the Unicorn was nowhere near as iconic as the other episodes. Stinging a Stinger and a Hitch in the Works had a slow beginning that was redeemed by the awesome sequence towards the end. Kiss and Tell had an awesome beginning with a weak middle. The Ringer did a great job establishing the show and the expectations for the rest of the series. Cold Spells expanded the show's humor. Underworld Connections had a great comedic dynamic between Link and Zelda. The Doppelganger was perhaps the funniest episode of the show. The Fairies in the Spring encouraged kids to take care of their environment. The White Knight had huge character development. And The Missing Link had all the great stuff I already mentioned and more. This show is the magnum opus of 80s video game adaptations, and I'm glad we got such a funny show. I don't care what other people say about this show and all their crap about Link not being the sexy hero they want. I just want to enjoy this show in peace, because this is a very good show for its time, and it is still enjoyable to watch today if you understood their circumstances and just give it a chance. Anyways, I'm open to your opinions. Please give me your rankings in the comment section below. What is your favorite Zelda episode? Which Zelda episode do you believe is the worst and which one is the best? Feel free to make an argument, as long as you're civil and respectful. Well, that was a pretty long ride for a ranking of 13 short cartoon episodes. Like this video if you liked, dislike it if you don't like it, and tell me how I could have improved. So that way, I can provide better entertainment for you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.